The behind-the-scenes commentary begins as Halloween ends. I'm David Green, the co-writer and director of the movie. Who else is in this room with me?
I'm Hugo Garza, and there's nothing you can do about it.
My name is Attila. I'm a co-producer and assistant director.
And then joining us via Zoom, we've got two of our cast members.
I'm Andy Matijak, and I play Allison.
Howdy, I'm Rowan Campbell, and I play Corey.
And to clarify, Hugo, you want to say what your job is on this major motion picture?
I am one of the set PAs in the AD department who was responsible for background, but on your movies, I get to do a lot more.
Including comments.
I like that they put Michael Myers in the logo.
Yeah, the shape and the Blumhouse card.
Yeah, this was a discussion kind of later once we started watching the movie with an audience and doing test screenings, thinking of, do you start with your ominous traditional horror movie music, score, something like that? But as this movie is going to play contrast in so many ways, thought it would be cool to start with something upbeat and optimistic as Halloween Night in Haddonfield.
But it also has a darkness to it, though, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And for those discerning viewers, fans of Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, they'll notice our font is...
The blue font.
Blue font is an homage to that film. Hugo, you had a note about this opening.
Oh, just the on the left of frame, the little boy throwing candy at the little girl who opens her umbrella and uses it as a shield, and it bounces off of. I set that background that day. It was fun.
This is the first shot I ever shot with you guys.
Yeah,
And
Rowan, why don't you talk about rolling into set
Attila
that day?
pulled me out of a car, didn't tell me what I was shooting, threw me on a bike, and then Cindy Ma, our props master, threw a on-set props, threw a backpack on me and sort of kicked me in the back, and I biked into frame.
And I will say the bike
And we
is
didn't
very
stop
tricky.
shooting.
And the bike is tricky to ride, and yeah.
That was
And then 3 days later, we had our cold open.
Rowan's very first moment on our set was a camera already rolling, and he jumps on a bike, and I think we did one take, right?
I think we tried to do one more, but the first one was good enough. It was we didn't need to.
So yesterday I saw this the second time in a theater, and that's the first time I realized the joke when she says, "Corey, you're such a lifesaver."
It took you that long?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I just found out about that joke right
I
now.
did too. Was this the first stuff that you guys shot entirely? Like, day one was all the cold open stuff? I remember it being the first week, but I don't remember exactly if this was...
It wasn't the first. It wasn't the first couple of days. It might have been the end of the first week or soon, but it was not. It was not the first.
Trick-or-treat kids can help themselves.
Help yourself to anything in the fridge.
She made zucchini bread. It's actually good.
I love this mirror.
My number. Okay. If there's an emergency, but we'll just be right
This
back.
house, this location was
Good.
absolutely insane.
The idea was that this opening would play like its own short film, homages to a lot of slasher movies. Movies like When a Stranger Calls is something that I've always been haunted by since I was a kid and saw that, and trying to think of the babysitter relationships, but put a little spin on it where this would be an unlikely character asked to babysit a kid a little bit out of his wheelhouse, and then what drama could ensue.
Sounds like normal kid imagination stuff, right?
No TV and no more candy. You guys can play till 8:30, 8:45. Then you should go to bed.
Easy money.
Yes.
Gonna come play with me or what?
That sounds
This little kid was so funny.
Halloween. We're gonna have a good time tonight.
Yeah, I always enjoy like when you find those kids that aren't afraid of cameras, aren't afraid to say what they think, and just let them unleash.
Did you always know exactly what monster movie was going to be playing?
No.
Yeah, it's in the original Halloween, Carpenter's Halloween. They're watching a version of The Thing on television set when Laurie's babysitting, and so I thought it'd be a kind of a fun homage to that, and also to bring Carpenter and his body of work into the mix, because this film was not just a sequel to a John Carpenter film, but in so many ways it was an homage to the tone of characters and where the natural meets the supernatural, and so many things that I've loved about his movies, from Christine to The Fog. And The Thing is a movie that really affected me as a young viewer. So many movies, I mean, Big Trouble in Little China, so many of his films really affected me, and wanted this movie to feel like it was plucked from that world of inspiration, just as much as if you watch a Stranger Things, you think, well, there's such a Spielberg Amblin note there. I was kind of feeding more specifically on John Carpenter's body for the inspiration for this movie.
And I also think it sets up like history repeating itself in Haddonfield in a scary kind of way, where like Corey deciding between the beer and the chocolate milk, like morally he makes the right choice, but you know he's kind of fitting into Laurie Strode, her position as a babysitter, the things on TV, he's by himself, and his line, "I'm not a babysitter," is in that way. It's kind of foreshadows him not wanting to take the good path, but it's complex because he does stick with chocolate milk whenever we jump to the gas station.
No, but also he's the one that turns up. He's the one disturbed by the film. You know, he's bothered by it, and he pretends it's for the kid's sake, but it comes from him.
Jeremy?
We look at all the masks. Christopher Nelson, our special effects makeup artist, is certainly responsible for the Michael Myers mask and its evolution, but also designing things like the Wolfman mask that Jeremy wears and the Scarecrow mask to come. It's just one of those things that you can only imagine the Halloweens and trick-or-treaters to come wearing these masks outside of the obvious of the Halloween iconography.
Jeremy!
I also like the holiday jacket.
Yeah, the holiday jacket was such a good choice.
Yes.
It's just such an obscure holiday. Yeah, it's so weird.
And it's fun just working with, like, Emily Gunter, who was our costume designer, the department heads, and for the most part, the entire crew was on all three of these movies. So it was really fun just to be able to develop that relationship. Everybody kind of pushes each other to do something new, different, be better, communicate more, and inspire. So you have ideas like that, this sense of trust, that sense of jazz that comes with great camaraderie and collaboration.
Okay, with this part, I have this take where this house is kind of like Freudian, like representing Corey's psyche, and the attic being his subconscious, like the part that it's latent or like recessive, and the fear enters and calls him up there to kind of inevitably pull him into this own part of himself that he doesn't want to confront, but it's there. And he gets trapped in there because he wants out, but it's scary. And I think there's this image system set up where it says with the whole movie, there's like, it'll happen 4 times, but think about, like, if you're watching this, like, every time Corey's in a scene where someone gets thrown or falls off of a height from really far and down to the ground, because it happens more than once. It happens 4 times.
That's really cool. One of the things I love about this franchise in particular is just the discussions and the passions and the interpretations and the evolutions of it all. And so many times over the last few years, having been involved as a writer in these things, that you get fans or collaborators, people that are joining the storytelling, come in and have these understandings, ways that they read what you've made, some of which is intentional and some of which isn't. And I love it. You know, good or the bad, it's just, you kind of feel like people are talking about it. It's affecting people. There's eyes awaiting it. There's an appetite for it. And we should be so lucky to be able to explore this mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And this one particularly, I think there's a lot to chew on.
Jeremy! You got me, buddy. Here, let me out.
Are you scared?
Jake?
I'm scared.
Jeremy, let me out! Let me out!
I like going to this. I watched it the second time last night, or third time, and I watched it this time thinking and observing things and being like, what actually happens? You know, like, does he actually grab the knife downstairs and go up with it? Did it actually disappear? Did Jeremy put it up there? And it's fun to watch the movie and be like, what if this is all from Corey's perspective? What if he's the narrator?
Wow. I love that. And we do, when we edit, we track all the various stories.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, that dude. Oh, man. Do you remember when that bounced? The body bounced. And everyone else went, that might be too violent. We were like, I don't know. We got to keep that. Bounced so high.
And that's when the nuance of editing, Tim
The
Alverson.
timing is so perfect.
Yeah, every frame is considered, and sometimes we'll even in what seems like one shot, we'll lift a few frames in the middle of it. And so, Tim, our editor, and Derek, our assistant editor, additional editor, we really work hard to try to find what the balance of grotesque and gritty and real or unseen, how we're making those selections. But that's what sitting in a dark room with a couple of dudes for a bunch of months really, really does. And then at the end of the day, they say time's up, and then you're done with the movie. So it's a fun journey with those guys.
How did this pumpkin intro come to be? Because I wasn't around for any of that. I mean, this is like one of my favorite intros to a Halloween movie ever.
It was cool. With each of the movies, we try to have some sort of theme subtly told through jack-o'-lanterns. And Halloween 1, it was kind of coming out of a moldy pumpkin and reestablishing the title. Halloween Kills was the town of Haddonfield and all the various faces and Haddonfield coming through as different jack-o'-lantern expressions. And then this one, it's what's emerging from one pumpkin to the next and the various characters there. And then this last one, which was just kind of an abstract idea I had of like ripping open a pumpkin. And we're used to seeing pumpkin guts and the kind of innards that are disgusting and you reach into, but what if there was almost a human inner body within that last pumpkin that had no expression? And so
It's such a, that's
Which also kind of ties into Lori at the end and kind of using the pumpkin guts and the insides of that to be kind of what is thought to be the inside of her skull.
yeah.
Matter.
Haddonfield was a peaceful town.
So I like how Jeremy bouncing off the floor to the mom yelling, Corey, what did you do? It's like shock and horror and terror turns into bridging into the opening title sequence of adrenaline and then the fun of like art and designing it with music and images. And but like that's what this movie's all about. It's like it's art and it's stylized. So it's not just about violence or terror. It's something beautiful.
That's another thing that we work with in the editing room is these transitions, some of which are conceived in the script stage, but then inevitably we're moving scenes around and trying something earlier or later. But we're always trying to have some sort of either symmetry or juxtaposition when we go from one scene to the next.
And Haddonfield was once again forced to
A
confront
lot of contrast and affinity.
This was always a conversation of like, how much retelling do we get into? but one of the things that we're talking about in post-production is there's not a lot of Michael Myers for a long time in this movie, and we knew that risk that we were taking. And so to be able to establish or remind the audience what he's done, who he is, where he's come from, because not every viewer of this film is going to obsessively have watched every chapter in this franchise. Some people are new, or some people watched the last one on their phone 2 years ago, or whatever it is. So wanted to have a little bit of a kickback into that before we go into a long Michael Myers absence and just get into some character building.
As I said.
In the years that followed, the people of Haddonfield descended into a plague of grief, of blame.
when we shot that scene where I'm getting arrested, you never called action. I just had police officer just came up to me and grabbed me and yanked me to the car, and it was genuinely jarring. And then I got to do a really fun dance with Jesse the entire shoot where we didn't really talk. We just bugged each other the entire time. It was really fun. He's amazing. I love him. He's so good.
And if
David, the scene where they're in the car and I asked Attila this at the after party of the premiere, but is it kind of a nod to Snow Angels in a way?
I try not to nod to
When
my
they
own
kill
movies. I'm
themselves?
not sure what that. I can't help but be affected by my own experience, I guess, sometimes.
I had like a total PTSD moment when I was watching it because I was like, holy shit, that was one of the most traumatizing parts of Snow Angels for me.
I've not seen that movie in a very long time, so maybe it's in there subconsciously. One thing I wanted to point out is the woman that hung herself is Oscar's mom, who has a moment in Halloween Kills screaming when she sees her son, who died in our first film in 2018, sees him in the morgue in Halloween Kills. And so we tried to echo his costume, and it doesn't feel like too many people have noticed that is a continuing character that is, in her grief, committed suicide. And some of that just trying to set up the world of Haddonfield and its downward spiral since the events of 2018, and how Michael Myers has, as Laurie said in the last chapter, not so obviously become supernatural, but taken on more than just an earthly human form as he's plagued the town with fear, paranoia, blame, all these things. So we can have the backdrop of a darker entity in this town beyond just the personification of Myers.
Shit!
In the population of Haddonfield, I love the shitty characters. Jeremy is kind of like Julian, who's referred to, I think, in Codes as that asshole kid from across the street. I love these little kids that they're really, mischievous.
Although you can't help but love little Julian from 2018. I think.
Yeah, no,
Julian's
I always
great.
thought he was cute.
I
It's
think he
only
just
in
pissed off the
Kills.
neighbors. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what he did, but he pissed off the neighbors
There's
somehow.
some backstory there.
So I'm not going.
Oh.
WURG 94.9, giving you
The Willie the Kid character, which we had the idea of what we wanted to do in Kills, and you'll see not only a radio tower in the background of some of the shots, but flyers for advertising for the radio station in various locations. But wanted to have another, as Hugo was talking about the negativity of the town, but like there's also just this kind of conspiratorial voice of kind of the collective mindset of madness of the town. And so thinking that would be fun to have as a nod and a character like in the Fog and the radio station and the John Carpenter film The Fog, these things that have kind of a beacon of a tower, of a character.
Hold on a second. Hey, Corey, you're late!
Rick Moose, look at that face.
Rick Moose.
Do you notice the chewing gum?
Oh yeah,
Is that a character choice?
Yeah, we
Did he have chewing gum?
what?
He has chewing gum behind his ear. It's just incredible. This big pinks.
Oh,
blob, yeah.
man, like Hubba Bubba.
Rick Moose.
Like a big chunk of chewing gum.
He was fun, and Yo Corey became
Yeah.
our mantra.
Yo,
on set.
Corey!
There's one quote that the crew picks up that it's really fun to just repeat every day on set. On this one, for sure, it was Yo Corey.
It was also Good Boy.
Good
Everybody
boy.
calls him Good Boy.
Yeah. So he's got gum behind holding the pencil that kept slipping out of his ear. So he's got chewing gum back there holding it up.
So I'd like to know, was there a problem with the pencil that was fixed with chewing gum?
Ooh, he's
or
just a
was it
sweaty
that-
man, and so it would slip off. And the one way that we could get it without taking a lot of time is put some chewed up bubble gum back there.
Yeah, but it was also a part of an effort of having Rick be a part of every department. So in that case, he was helping props by
That's-
chewing the chewing gum.
That's right.
Always helpful to have Rick Moose around.
Yeah, he also camera operated. He did sound. He boomed. He camera operated. He propped, and he even AD'd a couple of times.
Did he call
That's
action,
all.
David?
He did
Yeah.
call
I'm
action. Yeah.
sure.
You're under arrest for being the prettiest girl I know.
That's nice, Doug.
At the head of this scene, there's a billboard that has a Willie the Kid, and that was actually a post-production effect when we got into our early test screenings and people weren't tracking where this DJ came from. In the production of it, there was a kind of provocative rabbit in red lounge billboard that was a nod to the original Carpenter film, which was more kind of arbitrary fan service, and thought that could be some valuable real estate at setting up a character. So we went back to our concept art when we were in the edit room and then put that billboard in there to help spell it out a little bit more.
It's interesting. It's so layered. Willie the Kid is layered throughout this entire thing. And you also have to kind of establish his face so that when you do meet him later on with Allison and Corey,
That's what
you
it was
aren't
entirely.
totally jarring.
Because you only hear him forever, and then I thought, well, at least that face when he shows up should be somewhat familiar, so I don't know.
And this is a scene that proves that David Gordon Green should win an Oscar for casting shitty asshole kids.
A really fun I mean, I always have such great joy with casting young characters, and this was a fun one to be able to put this unlikely ensemble together and take a lot of tropes.
so fun.
It's like the tropes of 80s movie bullies, but then put them in a marching band uniform and the four people least most likely to hang out with each other and put them in a car. But for example, so the main dude, Terry, Michael, we get to set and he's a Staten Island kid. He just didn't grow up driving a car. So he didn't have a driver's license, didn't know how to drive a car. So, but in the script, he drove a car. We get to set, he's like, I can't drive a car. And so we threw Stacy in the story and kind of bullshitted a story that fudged through that one. I don't know, because I needed him to drive the car so we could get the flat so his dad could smack him in the back of the head. But then we just worked around it.
There's so many little things in this scene that are just so fun to watch. Like when he calls my name and the dribble of chocolate milk rolls down my face. And then also when he comes up to me, I think it was David that threw out the line, chocolate milk, hey, I like milk too. So funny.
I like milk too is one of my favorite lines.
He killed that kid, didn't he? Yep.
Killed a kid and too pussy to buy some fucking
Guys, you know what?
beers.
Let's just fucking forget about
And then,
it.
and the song that's playing in the convertible when they're driving up is the actor that's playing Billy, this guy
Yeah.
Martine. That's his music.
Martine.
So it was fun to be able to integrate his music into something that they're playing as they pull up.
What the fuck?
Smashing the Chocolate Soldier beverage, which is a drink that doesn't exist anymore, but I grew up, going to East Texas with my granddad and drinking Chocolate Soldier, and me and my dad, my granddad going fishing and drinking that kind of peculiar beverage, but I've got a fond nostalgia for it, so we dusted off the IP and brought it back to life.
Would you look at this? I mean, a psycho meets a freak show. Wow.
Can't
This
believe
is a match made in heaven.
For reasons I'll never understand, the first day I saw the Margot character on set, I just really couldn't wait to see her get killed. Something about the sweatpants and that hair, it was like, this would look so cool. And I think when in the trailer, when I first saw the clip of just her in that yellow sweater jacket, like yes, all you need is a little taste of it, but she's made for it.
Bullies are so much fun. Like, I remember watching the Neverending Story opening day at the General Cinema Prestonwood in Dallas, Texas, and then the second those bullies show up, at some point, maybe it was because it was in the trailer, the Luck Dragon's about to thrash those dudes, and they're going to be in that dumpster.
It looks great on you.
Sure it does, but I'm not going.
Margot I didn't realize how she brought so much warmth to the role, though, which was something that was really unexpected. When I read it on the page, I just kind of read all of them as bullies, and she's the most on Corey's side throughout the whole thing. And I was the most torn about her death watching it.
This close up right here, Allison, that's when I think, that's when we see how beautiful Allison has become. And Corey and her getting to have their own little Hollywood romantic, their own movie. There's a few aspects of this where it's almost a separate movie.
I like that in the middle of a meet cute, Corey pulls out a Slim Jim.
Slim Jim.
Out of anxious, whatever. He figures the best way to avoid this eye contact is through a Slim Jim. This was fun.
Just clean it up and get a goddamn sterile kit and give him a tetanus shot.
David sent me through some nurse boot camp, so I got to go meet a lovely lady named Tiffany at a clinic locally in Savannah, and she walked me through how to clean wounds, how to do tetanus shots, how to kind of do all the things.
Did she come to set? I feel like
she did.
Yeah, she was
David sent me to a mechanic shop, and I don't think I've ever felt more like an actor in my life than when I was at a mechanic shop in Savannah, Georgia. And I walked in and they were like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I guess change a tire." And the dude's facial expression was like, how do you not know how to change a tire?
You've gotten to this point in your life. Yeah, well, that's why secretly I wanted you to learn how to change the tires, though. Yeah. But it was interesting. We shot the first of our Halloween trilogy. We shot in Charleston, South Carolina. Carpenter obviously shot the first one in Pasadena, California. Takes place in Haddonfield. So we translated that to Charleston, then Wilmington, North Carolina for Halloween Kills, and Savannah, Georgia for Halloween Ends. And the hard thing about Savannah is one of my favorite cities in the world. The hard thing about it is there's Spanish moss everywhere, and we're supposed to be telling an Illinois story. Not only that, there's no bridges because it's underwater. So we had to drive an hour and a half to find where our cave dwelling would happen because there's no bridges in Savannah.
No, it can't. It's got a kickstand.
Because it was too tired.
This scene was a scene that we decided on adding to the film late. We did it in pickups, and I feel like it's one of my favorite scenes between Allison and Corey, and kind of lets them sink in and solidify their relationship a bit before the craziness.
Yeah, it was actually a Danny McBride idea. Danny, one of our co-writers and executive producers on this, is like, what's a great way to endear yourself to a character quick? It's a bad joke. So the why does the bicycle stand on its own kind of comes from the mind of one of the funniest people in the world, is knowing the value of humor, and even in its most attempted and vulnerable forms.
And I love that right away Corey doesn't get it as a joke. And he
That's my favorite part.
No, it does. It has a stand. Yeah. And
clearly they don't.
David loving. I went to ADR because I'm painfully Canadian. I went to ADR because on that line I couldn't sound more Canadian, but David was in love with the inflection of how I said it, and I was like, but it sounds Canadian. So it took me 100 tries in ADR to try and get the inflection and not sound super Canadian.
And there are so many abstract accents from this in this movie, from Terry in Staten Island to Joan and wherever Joan's from, and Ronald and he's from Queens, and so everybody's a little bit all over the place. But we
That's kind of the Midwest.
we
in a
can
way.
accept a Canadian into our strange vernacular here.
Fucking tits and say, you know what? Let's go.
This is delicious.
The spaghetti glass on the milk makes me want to vomit every time.
That's an example of another one of those transitions we were talking about. It's just like going from the splat to the spaghetti, yeah, and then the gnarliness of the milk, which was, I think, Paul Logan, another one of our co-writers. It was written by Danny McBride, Paul Logan, Chris Bernier, and myself, and I think the first draft was the marinara sauce clinging to the glass of milk on Paul, and I don't want to know what disturbing venue that image came from in his mind, but I'm sure from life experience.
It's normal.
And one of the most memorable scenes from Gummo, the kid in the bathtub with spaghetti and milk.
Oh, but yeah, well, maybe that is where it's from. That's fun. Taking a bath eating spaghetti.
I like that there's so many villains throughout cinema that eat spaghetti. So I thought it was such a fun choice to have Corey just eating spaghetti at the start of the movie. Hey, do you remember when I wiped out, Andy? Do you remember when I was riding the bike?
It was
I
like
came
right
around
when
that
you go
corner?
around that bend. Yeah.
And my favorite thing about watching that clip is I crash and
We
I
had
do
two
the
cameras
sort of
going.
somersault, and everything looks normal, and we probably could have used it, but your genuine reaction of being concerned for me was like, I was praying they would put it in the movie somehow, but I don't know.
Did you guys try to put it in the
We
movie?
did try. It was funny. He just does a somersault and then he jumps up with this like ta-da expression.
He almost looks too cool though.
It was too
he
cool.
did. Yeah, it looks like a little too cool for this version of Corey. If it was later, then maybe. But for like nerdy boy Corey, it was a little.
Also, your front brake.
We didn't necessarily shoot this film in chronological order, but it was in chunks, kind of chronological, to the point where after the first few weeks, some of the crew were confused about what movie we were making because there was no Michael Myers. And they literally thought, oh, I think David is just squeezing in a little independent love story here. And
I mean, I basically was on a independent love movie.
David's mumblecore movie he's so proud of.
I mean, we really had a wonderful first few weeks in the sense that we were just free of any kind of action or special effects gags and stuff. And the second half became a very different shoot. But I remember the crew, because most people didn't have the full script at that point.
Well, people come up to me all the time to say, like, is it stressful having to make a movie that appeals to all the Halloween fans? And you just think of like, no, it's amazing because there's so many people. You can't please everybody. So you get approached by producers that say, here's some incredible real estate. Now build your dream house. And so over 3 films, we've taken different risks and taken different story paths and been able to do that 3 times, which we should be so lucky in a lifetime to be able to have those opportunities, that you have total creative freedom in a world that is so meaningful to you from childhood and the early days of my cinematic exposure, just to be able to take these characters and play, you know, like when you're a kid playing with your Star Wars characters or G.I. Joe, all the stuff I was doing as a kid, trying to bring strange little narratives of someone else's characters to life. And then here you really get to do it and flesh it out.
My niece gave me a Rosetta Stone, and now I'm learning Japanese. Shatsu o
And this is a scene that we played with quite a bit through the edit, where it would go. And again, early on, we knew we were dealing with a beast in our late arrival of Michael. And there's one version of this scene which happens later, one version that happens in different places. But then this one gave us the air I felt was the strongest for the Allison Corey relationship to be developing off camera, to think that this isn't just, let's meet, let's say, hey, let's be cute, let's go to a party. But now I feel like anything could be happening right now between the two of them. This could be a day or it could be a week. And let's focus on the other love story of this film, of which I feel like there are many. But let's see this kind of cute teenager scene of Frank and Laurie in a way, in an awkward romantic moment of possibilities and optimism where we can see Laurie with that smile that we haven't seen in so long.
Somebody's out there looking out for her.
I like your face.
This is my favorite scene of Laurie Strode ever. I fell in love with Will and Jamie in this scene. It makes me so happy.
But it's a really beautiful point in the story. I mean, she's kind of planted the seed of introducing you to, and she's looking for love herself, and also for her, for her granddaughter. It's a whole different movie at this point.
What you smiling about? What did you buy at the store?
In my imagination, like the horrible things that people would post on social media in Haddonfield, there is no social media. People just say it to them in person to their face.
That's interesting. Yeah, they avoid that passive aggressive world. They go right up to them.
She cannot speak because of you. You were her neighbor.
Do you want to talk about the casting of her?
You were there. You talk about it.
Well, I mean, it's one of these beautiful things. It's one of these beautiful things that we do. We have this specialty casting friend, John Williams, who purposefully seeks out people that aren't actors and puts them in front of David in the prep period. And this lady comes in, and she just gave us something so raw and beautiful that I've never seen David cast someone on the spot before, and he did, and she just broke down in tears and was just so overwhelmed with emotion, and it was a really poetic part of the casting. And she did beautifully. She did exactly what she did in the audition, which is hard considering she's never been on a film set, and now you've got 100 people staring at you with 2 cameras.
Yeah, I love it. And that was Jamie's first day on this movie, and I just remember her just smiling at me and just saying, "Here we go again, let's do it." Rolling up her sleeves.
Ooh, Nick.
I know. I feel like that's another one that it takes a minute for people to recalibrate their brains and realize that is Nick Castle that is the Flasher in this movie.
It's such a beautiful cameo.
I'll be right back, okay? Get us a drink.
I like this Scarecrow mask is so like empty, but still so childish and just so off-putting.
Hey, Scarecrow. See anything you like?
So one of the things we did when we were writing Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends simultaneously, when we knew we were going to do 2 more movies, and I had never met Kyle Richards when we were writing Kills. And then when we filmed Kills, we had such a wonderful time working with her and just found her so naturalistic and wonderful to work with that then we had the time, since we had a pandemic, and time to explore what we were going to do with Ends. And so we found ways that we could invite her back to our set and just hang out with her more because she's so fun, and thought it would be cool for Laurie to actually have evolved from her babysitter or from a babysitter to her friend, and having those connections, just the growth again in that small town, that community, but give her a little bit more of a joy and a substance to her social life.
This dance scene right here will forever be one of the most special memories of my life. And again, the genius of Paul Logan. I remember with
Paul
David,
Logan.
him asking, I want to dance and I kind of want it to look choreographed, but it can't be, it's got to be messy and weird and obscure. Sure enough, I think like the next day, Paul had this like 1980s punk rock ballet video that was, I think, like a minute and a half. Do you remember how long it was? But
it was quite long, but it tells the entire story of Allison start to finish. It's obviously
It's the whole
interpretive
movie,
dance,
yeah.
but it's the entire movie up until the end when Allison's standing over him, and it's such a beautiful moment of levity. I mean, we had so much fun.
It is entirely
We had
choreographed
so much fun.
from
It's
Paul's
entirely choreographed.
Paul's ideas to then Attila brought in our choreographer friend.
Yeah, Danica Selen, yeah, she came in and she followed this blueprint that Paul had written and physically demonstrated. But it is if you were to hold on this just in one take, you'll literally see the meeting of these 2 people, the fact that they're both in the mood for love, and this wild, youthful love story that ensues, and it's a metaphor of their entire relationship all the way down to the tragic ending.
Yeah, when she's holding my head.
Yeah.
Also, Attila, I don't know if you remember, but when we were doing coverage on the other side of the room and the extras would leave, and I think it was, I don't know who's reversing, or maybe it was when we were shooting Kyle's coverage through the dance, all the extras weren't there. So me and you were dancing for Kyle back and forth. And there's
We
a
have a great
beautiful
video of
behind the
it.
scenes video from Dahlia, our on-set costumer, of me and you prancing away together alone. on
taking
the
my
dance floor.
place.
It's ridiculous.
But isn't there something so wonderful of just being so silly and free? You know?
It's so
and there's an
opening.
excuse for it, you know.
It kills me when you understand.
The juxtaposition between, I mean, the freedom of the dance and then walking into this essentially nightmare with this scenario with the mother of the kid you killed. I mean, you have so many moments like that, even what we just saw with Lori coming out of the store feeling kind of on the high after her conversation with Frank and then getting berated. It's like the juxtaposition, it takes you on such a ride because you don't really know what to feel when, and then you're just kind of feeling something new, and you always just flip the script.
Lori! Lori, watch out!
See, this is a classic movie moment where everybody sees a cool Ford Bronco old truck and they're like, I want it in my movie. And then you go to shoot the thing and the truck breaks down 15 times.
Oh, man.
We're all sat there waiting for a truck.
Yeah, two actors in the moment ready to roll, and then just the car is in the way.
It's a cool car, man.
Cool
Looks
car.
good.
I blocked it out of my memory.
The bike, though, no problem.
Lessons learned, yeah.
There's just so many obstacles to these two finding love.
This was Rowan's audition scene, right?
Well, I had the fake sides that Paul Logan wrote.
Oh, that's interesting.
This is what we read when you and I met.
But I think that's
worked on
interesting,
this scene.
Rowan, to talk about how this role for you came about.
Yeah, I got an audition. It was for, which I never asked you about this. What is the Maynard Defense Council?
Maynard,
Is that
I was watching the Giggle Snort Hotel, which is a show I liked as a kid, and there's a crow named, if I'm not mistaken, it's Maynard. And then I was asked to what a good fake title for this movie could be while we're trying to do some preliminary casting, and so I pulled Maynard Defense Council. I was showing the kids Giggle Snort Hotel. So if you haven't seen Giggle Snort Hotel, that's a perfect tangent to pitch the Bill Jackson masterpiece of this show from Chicago, late 70s, early 80s show. Really good, disturbing, magical.
Yeah.
The girl on the billboard is Laura Altman, who worked with us on the previous two films.
Yeah, she wasn't there to join us on this one, but she was looking over us. It's a beautiful cameo for her.
Where you going? There you are, man. I've been looking for you. I want to apologize. Okay? Jesus Christ. So what do you say, Corey, huh?
This is great. Our stunt double, Stanton Barrett, does this throw for me over the bridge, and it was into a bunch of cardboard boxes. And all I was thinking was, I could do that, probably, maybe. And then I watched him do it, and I was like, no way I'm doing that.
Well, the throw is
That man is fearless.
It's 3 shots to get you to throw you over the bridge there, but we obscure it with some sneaky edits as characters are crossing. So let's
see if we can call it out, dude.
Yeah, call it the 3 shot. We try to make it look like one, and I think it works.
Oh yeah.
You gonna murder us same way you killed that kid?
You little psycho bitch.
You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking
What
about.
does Billy say after the plummet? Does anyone know?
Little Dick busted
Asshole
it.
Little Dick
plummeted.
burst.
Little Dick busted it.
Little Dick busted it.
I'll give him the credit on. There's some good improv lines that pop up in this. Pretty sure that was him.
Billy.
So
Yeah,
here's
it's me. Me.
So that we cross. That's a
Stand.
cut, and then
Stand.
now cut again. So it's all on his back as Terry crosses twice.
It's such a good cut.
And this is the second instance I'm thinking of where it's like Corey accidentally pushing Jeremy off a flight of stairs, and now other kids accidentally pushing Corey off a bridge, and it's a significant like transformation point in his character too.
Come on.
Because what it leads him to.
Oh, there's a fun little shanty. Our friend Joey Stevens wrote this song for our vagabond friend here to be singing, and then we did a fun version of it. That's kind of an embellished, epic version that we were going to play over the end credits. It existed somewhere, but I ended up replacing that to get some of the Boy Harsher cue and a John Carpenter cue in there. But it's a fun one that I wish we could figure out a way to spotlight it somewhere.
That was the song that I think I was in the car on my way to set, and you sent me the lyrics and the track and said, "Can you just learn this real quick?"
Oh yeah, because I was gonna have you sing it too, and that we did sing it on the rooftop, right? And
We did, yeah. It was the scene on the rooftop, and I don't know if we told Andy, but she was in the middle of doing a beautiful scene, and I just started singing. And on take one, I think you just looked at me really confused. went with it.
I feel like you're never confused when you're working with David Gordon Green because you have no idea what he's about to direct your other counterparts to do. You just kind of have to go with it.
Playful secrets.
There are so many scenes in this film where I had no idea how they were going to be edited together because we gave so many different variations on the scene, and the rooftop scene being one that was just entirely different than what it turned into.
This was fun because of the rats. Hugo, were you wrangling the rats?
No.
Were you,
I was far
okay,
from
he
it.
was outside doing something better. I remember the one moment that got me where I couldn't hold it together is when, rats make that little... Well, it turns out that, like, if they do it in your ear, it's the craziest tickle in the world.
No,
and I couldn't keep it together. Because I remember David just kept saying, I need the rats closer to his head. And then eventually just goes, well, just put it on his head. They plopped a rat on my head, and I'm keeping it together, trying not to laugh. And then it just shoved its little rat nose so deep in my eardrum.
I have to say, those are the most behaved rodents I've ever worked with. They were very nice.
Yeah, they were Larrys. When there's 4 Larrys or something, they named all 4 of them the same name.
There you go.
And when I asked why, the lady said, well, they're rats. They're hard to tell apart.
Good point.
Okay, I have to try to calm down and relax what I'm about to say, but this is my favorite part of the movie. And it's the labyrinth, and to not sound pretentious, but Borges. It's like, and if anyone's seen this like 1970 movie Performance by Donald Cammell, and it's like you don't know what's happening, but there's some kind of a synthesis of identity. And it's like Shape and Corey, and this vortex, this graphic image right here with the leitmotif, this music in the theater, so beautiful. It's just pure style.
I was in the editing room the day that you guys were sound designing that.
That was, and we evolved that
Yeah.
and played with that a lot. And how much story do you want to tell? How much do you need? How much music do you need to emphasize that? When I got the first track from John Carpenter and Cody and Daniel Davies, and it just rocked, and you just have that electric guitar taken to that other level that it says so much. But it is that's a 20-second chunk of movie that there's a lot going on, and so how thick or thin do you make it? And we played with every imaginable layer in there, and again, at a point you're just like, all right, movie's done, it's coming out in 3 weeks.
I say you go back in there and you get me that.
I like the eye shot where you can see Michael in my eye. That's something we did on pickups as well. So that came in later. But David would put his hands around my neck and sort of throw my head around when they were recording my eye shot. It's like
there's a great photo Jamie Lee actually posted, and she posted it pretty recently, of David doing that to you. There's like a series of a couple of them.
Look at the background. Like you see Haddonfield in a more wide form than in previous iterations. Like you see that there's a McDonald's and that there's places like those are questions. And when we found this is a little town called Sylvania in Georgia, and when we found this location, there were so many.
What was the restaurant across the street? Yummies or something? What was it?
Yummy. The Yummy House was a different location. This is Huddle House was here. We got it.
Oh yeah.
Joan, let's talk about Joan and her, the inspiration of a movie called Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker, which is something that Susan Terrell, who's just an incredible actress that is now passed, but was in this movie that
was one of the first movies I watched off your list. But we had that phone call about like Munchausen by proxy with parents, and we went off on that.
So it's just trying to find inspirations to be able to share with the crew and the cast that kind of help beyond the script, thinking, what's our tone here, and when is Halloween gospel, and when can we separate ourselves from what we've established? When can we try something new? When do we go to camp? When do we go to grotesque? Even Deb and her bug eyes there, like there's a pinch of comedy that we've never dealt with in the Halloween movies, and Michelle Dawson, that actress, just gave us this very realistic, lifelike opportunity there to find something different, a little bit new flavor that wasn't quite satirical, but opened up a sense of, a smile toward the comedy.
People create their own stories and make their own choices. They believe what they want to believe. I'm hopeful with perspective that my experience will help others heal. You have to ask yourself, am I in control, or do the elements control me? Life or death? Suicide? or cherry blossoms.
This scene here out the window is such a fun nod. But also, when I sort of jump out behind Laurie, my eyes are looking all crazy. The contacts were scratched, and I couldn't see through that whole scene. And I remember being terrified about how that scene turned out. And I actually brought it up with you, David, and you were like, no, it works. It's great. I love that you can't see.
Yeah, you're crying the whole scene. I have no problem with your eyes itching you right now. Just leave me alone. Let's roll. But it's great, and this being the third film that we had the great privilege of working with Jamie Lee Curtis on, just to be able to see both her commitment, dedication, and enthusiasm every day, bringing a scene like this where there's subtlety in her reactions, but there's a lot of story in her eyes of what her intuition is starting to pick up on. And it's great. And on and off set, very often we'll say, what would Laurie do? And reach out to Jamie about ways that we could play it. And she's the first person to say she'll try anything. She's just so fearless. And it's an incredible opportunity working with someone like that, that's that open, that comes to set early with ideas, with support for the cast and crew, and really owns this character in a way where, as she puts it, her identity is kind of blurred with Laurie Strode in a way that, she's really proud of. And one of the most bittersweet aspects of concluding this franchise is that we don't get to party with Laurie Strode anymore. She needs us. We need her.
I killed someone.
Such a sad moment.
It was our first scene together that we shot.
It was our first scene together, and we had done the scene like 3 or 4 times, and then David came over and whispered something in my ear. He said, once you get off camera, I want you to just scream as loud as you can. And I remember right before I screamed, David, I noticed the boom mic was right over my head, and I had an ethical dilemma of whether to commit or not.
Wow.
And I screamed, and it was the weirdest take, but there was something so cool about just screaming off camera.
Well, I assume, Chris Gebert, our production sound mixer, he's the only person that's worked on all, I think this is film number 15 for me, and he's the only one that's worked on every movie of mine. So I've done my best to preserve his ears through his own artistry and engineering. But so, yeah, I sense that ethical dilemma. I've been in that place many times myself.
Just wanted it to be a fun night. That's all.
Chris Gebert was the first person I met on the Halloween crew. I met him at the Stronger premiere, where you told him that I was going to be in the Halloween movie before I was even offered the thing, and I almost pooped my pants.
That's the funniest thing. Have I ever told you that story?
No.
So Andy, I knew Andy was. I was doing press and going to release the movie, that Jake Gyllenhaal movie, Stronger, and so we're doing a premiere and a screening in New York, and I invited Andy, knowing that I was going to cast her in the movie, but not having told her that. And so she shows up, and then I'm introducing her to Chris Gebert, and I say, "This is Andy, who's going to be playing Allison in Halloween."
And then he walked away.
And then
he just walked away and left Chris and I to talk. And I'm like, I guess I'm okay.
Oh my God.
He did something similar on Zoom when he was casting me, because it was one of those things where like nobody was really communicating with my team at all, and it was just Zoom calls with David and Andy. It was kind of just hanging out. Like he'd just call me and be like, "So what'd you think?" And then we'd just chat about stuff. And then eventually, I think he was like, "So yeah, you just come. You want to jump on board? You can do that." He said it so casually, and then Andy looked at me, and she was the one who was like, "Are you excited?" And I was like, "What just happened? I don't know what is happening. Am I doing what happened?" Yeah, it was so strange. I love your understated approach to casting people in person.
Oh man, it's so much fun.
I believe we had a code word of if you were crazy or not, and if we signed off on it, it was like ooga booga.
Oh, what was the code word?
I don't remember. It was something that you would never say in a normal conversation.
How many times did you say it?
3.
I think 3.
Got killed and your grandma feels guilty about it, so she's making you her child.
So in this blossoming romance, I think there's also a choice they're confronted with based on morality. And going back to like when Laurie Strode is in the driveway and Corey comes up to her and he says he got these injuries from defending himself. He's kind of like seems to have been holding it against Laurie Strode that by doing what's right, which is, resisting bullies and standing up for yourself and, maintaining your integrity, if what it got him is getting his butt kicked, then he is kind of guilt tripping her in a passive aggressive way. And then after that, I started to think has every family member of Laurie Strode and Citizen in Haddonfield at some point guilt tripped her about something? It's everyone's targeted her and blamed her for, just trying to do the right thing.
Pretty cool.
That's right, Hugo. I love you talking about this because I went over this script obviously a bunch of times because there was a year delay to shooting due to COVID. So I had an extra long time looking at it. And what's fun about prepping a characters is you get to dive into what they believe in and what their ethics are and stuff. And there's 4 different versions of Corey that we used all through shooting, where there's the version of Corey where he knows he's lying and he knows he's manipulating everybody and he's a total sociopath, so to speak. There's a version of Corey where he's just the sweetest boy in the world getting influenced in the wrong direction. And then again, to when the movie came out, it was what if this movie is through the perspective of the radio host and all that stuff? You can watch this movie so many different ways.
I love hearing what you're saying about the different characters of Corey, because it feels like he's in the middle of a tug of war, between Laurie and the Shape. And so is this relationship and the fate of the relationship. And it's it was started with such good intentions by Laurie, but then it gets poisoned and corrupted, and then it ends up unfortunately becoming something really dark, where in a parallel world it could just be a true romance type duo.
And we wanted to make sure that their relationship wasn't uber manipulated by Corey. So it was kind of there was a lot of conversation of kind of Allison being a version of kryptonite for him. And that's why it's so interesting seeing scenes like this, because you're watching him kind of go back and forth and toggle between being clean and clear with Allison and then having one foot in this other darkness.
This nighttime krautrock motorcycle driving, this is when I start to process the moral choice he has to make, the darkness, and how there's something pleasurable and that draws him to that. And it's kind of I lump everything together when it's a movie, when it's drugs or crime or anything immoral act. And when it comes to sex or violence, or any of those morally transgressive acts, I think there's sexy and there's depraved. And sometimes there's overlap. But right now, I think this is being bad is sexy. And Mulaney being the last guy Allison dated, it's obviously, saying something about control and the law, and her being I don't want that anymore. How far do I want to follow this guy on this dark path, as Laurie Strode calls it?
One of the interesting things of having an outside character come into this world is that Halloween 1 and 2, all the kills are really sadistic, random, and super violent for senselessly. But in this film, aside from the self-defense in the first kill of our homeless friend, every kill here is passionate and personal in a way, unlike the others.
Rowan always joked that he was on a Roman's Vengeance movie, where all of his kills were out of passion.
But they are. I think you can point to them. Not they're sloppy and they're not stealth. They're sloppy and they're passionate, and they're in his own broken.
They're justified.
In his broken sense of justice, they're justified. Yeah.
I have to be careful when people ask me about Corey and his behavior, because I suddenly start defending him. I'm what do you mean? Corey's the most romantic.
I do too.
Whoa. He's the sweetest good boy ever.
But there's one thing I really wanted to lean into, and maybe this is just because in high school I was obsessed with the series Twin Peaks, but the bad boys and leather jackets and motorcycles, and I don't know, every opportunity we had there to scratch that River's Edge itch, that Twin Peaks type of tone, I thought was a fun and applicable evolution of this community of Haddonfield and the characters that we could meet. So this is actually, from a technical standpoint, this is another conversation that editor and I have a lot, is two kind of jump scares right back to back is just a real challenge when you get into how to structure them. Like one, do you underplay one and overplay the other, or you don't really have the time to recover from one before you jump right into the other. So that was an interesting lesson that I didn't think about in the script stage until we get to this in the editing room. Then you're thinking, how do we pace that out? A perfect example of something, if I'd had production to do over again, I might have spread it a little bit differently. And if anybody watched Halloween Kills, there's a young trick-or-treater in our flashback section that says, "Don't fuck with the Mulaney's," and then this is in a very distant ancestral path. This Doug character is somehow related to those misfits.
How did this come to be, David?
What?
Like the face.
This part of the movie makes me scream every time.
Oh, we put, Richard Wright is our production designer on these three films, and he put faces about at Michael's height in various subtle suggestions of a face about Michael's height in various points in the wall that if we wanted to play some games. And then that one was just my favorite because Michael could actually be hiding. The flashlight could point to something that the audience looks at the first time they see it, and then anybody that notices a boogeyman lurking in the shadows, he's there too.
Show me how to do it.
And going back to like transgressive moral acts, I think there's something almost like fetishistic or a little kinky when Corey says like, "I want you to show me how to do it." I mean, whatever it is, it's like you cruise it, and then you learn what it feels like, and then you're like, okay, how do I get more?
Oh, this score.
Yeah, and then this is the big ask of the movie is like, can we wait this long to see Michael energize? And I think it's a perfect thing of like, if you're buying a ticket because you need to see Michael and Laurie, then it's going to take a while for that to kick in. If you're watching what I'm hoping is a part of the Carpenter-inspired vernacular of characters in a community, here we go. As he's, you said something, Andy.
Energizing.
Yeah, he's like, he's powering up.
He's powering up, is what I said.
Or as Paul Logan says, he's
going to his happy place.
He's going to his happy place.
No, Corey is having a love affair with everybody in this movie, with Laurie, with Michael, and with Allison.
Yeah.
There was somebody sent me a photo of right after this scene. It goes into the. Oh, never mind. That's later in the movie. It's after the nurse Deb and Dr. Mathis kill. And it cuts to us on the motorcycle. Somebody sent me a photo, and they had put Michael's face on you on the back of the motorcycle. It was like, me and Michael driving away after this murder.
Oh my God, are you okay?
I don't know what's happening to me.
Oh, this is a fun one, Andy, we should talk about so this scene in the script and in production, this became a sex scene, and it never once occurred to me or anybody else on set. The reality of the fact that he's just murdered people in a sewer with Michael, and he's coming out of this moldy, mildew, infested.
I love that that's what people strike issue with.
And then when we
not
show it
cutting
to
off tongues or anything.
Exactly. It's not the violence of the movie. But then when I showed it to the first audience, I don't know, it wasn't a big one, but I got an extended friends and family screen together, and like they're having sewer sex, and everybody like, oh, so we're like, oh, they can't fuck here.
Yeah.
Let's
the one specific moment would, because I think I put my finger in you chew on
my mouth.
Yeah.
and then the idea that I
it's the
crawled
Band-Aid
through
hand
this
too, so it's-
disgusting area,
I
and you just
mean-
chew on my hand, and you're like, not grossed out.
Yeah, I just
And you
didn't.
definitely wouldn't smell great, but whatever.
But it
Stinky sex
immediately,
works.
it was like, it's one of those things that until you're watching your movie with an audience, there's so many things that you think work and then they don't, or you think there's no way they'll buy this and then they do. It's so valuable to just watch it through the perspective of people for the first time that don't bring any of the baggage of the script or the production or expectation. Well, certainly they have expectations of these movies, but yeah, that was one. I was like,
Yeah, it was.
duh, you idiot! Like, God,
I
okay,
know.
they're filthy. Who wants
It
to
just comes right after.
at
so
least
it's
take a
a little
shower
tough to
first?
sell.
We should have just had a shower scene. It would have all been good.
I was hoping you would just cut away to me washing my hands in the sink.
Yeah.
Just real quick. BRB.
Yeah, taking a bubble bath, doing something.
It just cuts to a shot of Joan cleaning Corey
Yeah,
in the bath.
oh yeah, that would have been great. Mom giving you a bath. That would have been very, very on brand.
I know, right? I know I talk too much. I just get so excited about all that boogie.
The connection between the two of them, though, is quite important to see. So it's the way the scene was reworked. It does still kind of work and hold that.
Well, I think taking his hand and leading him upstairs is at least a graphic homage to the opening of the Carpenter film. Says it all, and then hey, guess what? You woke up in bed. We've seen that before. We know what happened. Some naughty business.
I think they just fell asleep, man.
They talked all night.
They snuggled, shared some secrets.
That's what Andy said to me. She's like, "God, can you believe they talked all night?" And I was like,
naked, but they talked.
Yeah.
I always liked Corey. You know, some kids you can tell they're a pain in the ass, but Corey was a
Jack
good-
Marshall. This is actor. So I did a Planters Peanuts campaign a few years ago, commercial campaign with Bill Hader as Mr. Peanut, and we did these great like stop motion, did the animation on these things, and so having this fun commercial campaign, and we filmed him in Austin. I met this actor, Jack Marshall, and he was in it was kind of a comedic commercial, Mr. Peanut, whatever. And when we were casting this, I couldn't find anyone that could nail this monologue and sound like a human being. And then, thankfully, the casting director that we used on that commercial was also the casting director that does as Attila was talking about, John Williams and Carmen Leach, who do our alternative casting in the movie. So we reached out to Jack, and literally after we've seen dozens and dozens of people try to hit this monologue, which could be so either boring or sentimental or whatever, I just wanted a human being to say these words. And so we sent it to Jack, and I was like, remember me from Mr. Peanut? And nailed it. First audition tape he sent in, I was like, yeah, that's our guy. Let's bring him in.
I don't know, man. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Right then, I felt like I got my answer. The kid who used to mow our lawn didn't kill my son.
So it's fun thinking about, like, I do a good number of commercials between movies and things like that, and some people look at it for extra money, extra exercise, but I just think you just never know who you're going to meet, from the technical construct to the creative. I can't tell you how many times it's evolved into someone I work with in a feature form.
the music choice here, David.
Rob Galbraith? Yeah.
Play Tell Me With Your Eyes by Rob Galbraith.
One of the things about the previous two films is that I feel like everybody that dies you're bummed, especially in 2018, because David's done such a good job of making the characters really interesting and likable. And it's not like your typical like horror movies where, you know, everyone's kind of a dick and then you are like happy when they're dead. The first time we really see that is in this film here, where we are able to kind of have these characters that are on the surface not super nice, but still you're able to kind of infuse moments like this. Like this scene to me, I was like, oh my God, these two are in love. And then it made me feel pretty bad when they were getting their asses handed to them by Corey and Michael.
Are they in love?
There's just,
but there was
they are.
There was conversation. Like,
Sweet.
what's the power dynamic in that relationship? There's.
I mean, he still calls her Dr. Mathis.
It's when he tells her to go take a shower.
Yeah. I was gonna.
This is their first night.
When
I felt the entire audience go.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So we know he's got this fuck pad, and we know he's got this lecherous aspect, and then the music. But that moment to me, when I hear him say that, it's what you fill in the blanks as an audience member. Me thinking like, okay, well, this. It's like, wow, this guy has a lot of sex. That he finishes her sentence with.
No, guys. See, I feel that way as well. And then when he's outside setting up the fire pit right here, and he's like trying to make sure everything looks perfect, I'm like, this is an insecure guy.
The question is more fascinating than the answer.
Everybody's trying to find love and opportunity. That's
I know, but this is their first night together. She's never been there before, and the first thing he says is, go clean up. Yeah.
He's not a gentleman, but
no.
What if he thought that was the right thing to say though? You gotta empathize a little more. Maybe that's his go-to, love line.
He asks a lot of questions, as does this movie. And I think all the Halloween movies ask a lot of questions, and I'm not afraid of that. Actually, that's one thing I really love about the interaction that we get to have with the fan base of this movie is everybody talks, everybody's got ideas and opinions, and you give anybody the keys to this Ferrari, and everybody's going to go a different direction with the things that they love, the things that they want to avoid, what you shouldn't do. And ultimately, one of the things I've assessed is that people love the Halloween movies. The ones they love the most, they saw between the ages of 11 and 16. And so those are their favorites. So kids are watching this movie, which is crazy because I've got 11-year-old twin boys, and they're not watching this thing. I give them a couple years. But it is, you find that excitement is triggered in that really vulnerable, absorbent, excitable youth. The music you love, the movies you love, it's when there's so much going on chemically and emotionally inside you, I think, that there's something cool. So I love just talking to people about what their favorite Halloween movies are, their favorite moments. And so often it is that period of their life that they saw something that maybe they weren't supposed to see, and so it had a provocative taboo that they were drawn to or whatnot. But I think it's fascinating to see the inner child come out in the conversations about the most recent movies even.
This is the first time I ever had like a nightmare after set, is when Chris Nelson made a mold of Dr. Mathis's head, and we did takes and takes of me stabbing it with a corkscrew. And he's so good at his job that it's so visceral when you're doing it. And I remember going home and waking up in the middle of the night. I was like, what's going on with me?
It's a weird thing you say that, because I haven't had a bad dream since I started writing Halloween movies. I feel like everything that was, I've used these movies to be able to exercise my demons in a way that, like, it feels really cathartic. Like, I think that I so often in life and through my career, I've held in so much negativity or frustration or fear or these things that just plague all of us in some, human form. And this has just been able to exhibit it in a weird, superhuman way.
But also, we spend so much time breaking down every aspect of these effects and these action gags, etc., that it just becomes so, less horrific when you're shooting it. I mean, literally, we just ask for ketchup. We never call it blood even. We just say, like, squirt some more ketchup, a little less, a little more. And and we stare at these things so close on and forever that, it loses its potency, I guess.
Andy, I think this was the fake sides. I think this is what the fake sides were pulled from. Because I remember.
I thought it was the diner scene. I thought your fake sides were the diner.
No, because it's
Wasn't
to
there a
talk
scene
about.
in the diner?
May have been both.
I talk about like meeting you in middle school or whatever, and like being on thin ice and like going back to my childhood. And I feel like Paul Logan might have scratched at this.
So he did. So when we were casting the quote unquote Maynard Defense Council, or Cave Dweller as it evolved and then became this, but it is like Paul would come up with something similar that hit the emotional triggers we needed to kind of suss out who was going to inhabit the role of Corey. And it was fun to be able to explore that and then hand you real sides, and then we do rehearsal and evolve it from there. And I don't know that there was a Monday morning or a Sunday evening that you weren't handed new sides for the week, because I would just be so inspired by the week's work and mess around with ideas that weekend with Paul and Chris and Danny. It was just so fun to be able to watch these characters come to life and take them beyond what we'd originally conceived.
Corey, come on.
This scene spiraled when we were filming into so many different arenas, and I had no idea. I'm surprised we even got the dialogue that we did in this scene during one take, because what it morphed into was essentially just like a silent film of these two people kind of connecting, looking at this thing, and having a lot of a moment with the hand.
And it was also a very stressful set. I mean, it was like I think only 10
There
of us.
was only like 30 people allowed on the roof at once.
Yeah, less than that for weight purposes, and we're just elevated without. Yeah, we had to curtail ourselves to a certain region of it too.
And then me and my harness just swinging off the side of the building, hanging there, swinging back and forth. Wait, you have a video of that, don't you, Attila? I was dancing in the air for you.
Yes,
you said dance, and I danced for you.
This is another example of when I did a commercial with King Curon for a Madden game. Actually, it was my first pandemic job. I did a commercial for Madden, and he was in it playing the sports player, and it was cool. Just him walking around talking to poolside, and then we just really hit it off, and then wrote this role for him.
And once Willie get in the ear, it's like your favorite song stuck in your head.
So like at the radio station when Corey he doesn't jump off the roof, but to me, it's again someone falling from a great height. But with him, he turns it into like playful and like joking about, I could kill myself. And the way now it turns him into looking at that as something fun and being liberated, but also this like going with the '50s bad boy. It's also kind of like the rock star, the live fast, die young, leave a beautiful corpse. He doesn't care about anything except just having fun and enjoying his young life, and no risk is too great for him.
That exchange between him and Laurie is so loaded.
It's great.
Isn't she? That's where you go.
David, you want to talk about this scene?
It might be my favorite scene. No, I love the scene, but this is the scene you're always just like, what's the audience gonna say? What are they on it? Are they? I mean, because it's 100% sad and strange and funny. Like it to me. You know what I like about it is it just in a 60-second scene. It's everything I like about a movie in one scene. I like a passionate and sincere line said in a way that makes me laugh and also feels true. The tone is so preposterous yet sad and angry, and I don't know, I love all the complications that are happening in there between funny and sad. And yeah, what did you think about kissing her on the lips? That was fun too.
It's awesome, man. I mean, I think, yeah.
Again, Joanna's just like one of those actresses up for anything. What do you want to do? She's just great at improv and typically a comedic actress. And here, just to get that spit and that anger, and then that obsessive love that she has for her son, that it's protection to the point of obsession. She doesn't want you to leave this house. She doesn't want a woman to walk into your life and take you away from her. When she's talking to Laurie earlier, I don't like it that he stays up all night with girls.
External force that threatens the well-being of the tribe. Survival depends on understanding and awareness and fear of physical threat to our daily lives. The other kind of evil lives inside us, like a sickness.
So in the scene, whenever at the end, I think we see Laurie Strode have kind of like I don't know if you call it like a teleport, shape-shifting, like appearing and disappearing, but it makes me think there is this ambiguity of the affinity between Michael Myers and herself. And I think, Attila, weren't you saying something about like the like a Greek tragedy aspect? But I think that's where it's like morally, it's not black and white. Like both Laurie and Michael Myers, there's a human aspect to them, like, and their trajectory. It's like becoming who they are. It's never clear about like someone being, entirely responsible. But Corey being confronted here, I think, he's still having a chance to where she's giving him a chance to where he could go either way, even though she knows he's going down this dark path. But
yeah, because in the Greek tragedy mythology, you have the gods always interfering with the mortal's life, and here we are constantly seeing Laurie trying to manipulate it, in contrast to where Myers is taking it.
If I can't.
This was another scene that I watched in the theater that I thought how fun it is to believe that when you see that she's gone at the end, it's what if she was never there?
Mm-hmm.
What if it's just Corey stood in the house talking to himself and he's feeding himself the narrative of Laurie's controlling whateverness.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
That's cool.
Because of his obsession with Allison.
You should give in. You should surrender to that feeling you had the first time you ever looked into his eyes.
And then at the end of this scene, David had me smash a piano with a what would you call it? A fire? Like a fire
poker. Yeah.
Fire poker. Yeah. Yeah. And I that was, the sparks were flying. That was a cool little shot.
That's a great transition as well to the what is it cut to when
the motorcycle
he hits
going
the
through a
piano, the
puddle.
motorcycle wheel? Yeah.
Yeah, because the chair would have been down if Laurie was actually in it when leaving.
I know, that's what there's so many things in this movie. When I watched it last night, I was like, this could be a Fight Club-esque movie if you want it to be. Like if you choose to watch it that way, it goes a different place.
Do you remember when David showed you how to hit the piano? Love that cut.
Match cut, the sound.
Yeah.
Such a good cut.
What's wrong?
We need to leave.
I can't right now. I'm working.
This phone call was weird. David locked me in a room in the doctor's office and just made me mumble into a microphone. And he was like, I want you to sound as weird as you
Yeah, I
possibly
could barely understand a word he was saying.
You know, but I love phone distortion, and I think in this one I was like channeling Black Christmas. Just
Yeah,
you know,
that Black
yeah,
Christmas
to hear
theme.
that, like that. It's just so haunting hearing the voice through the phone.
And when I watched Black Christmas, my idea of doing that phone call was just filling my mouth with saliva and trying to talk through my saliva.
And let's be clear, it's the original Black Christmas.
This is one of my favorite sequences in the film.
This is a weird example of like, okay, we've got 3 hours to film a fight scene. How do we possibly, you know, when you're losing time and just like, oh shit, this is where we are. How do we do it? And so it really was the effort of the amazing stunt team and just lock the camera down, not film it traditionally, and just have it scrappy.
I love this.
Yeah,
I love that it's
I
like
didn't
it's not
realize
like
that that's why.
Yeah.
I love that it's like Corey doesn't go in and just overpower him. He gets the upper hand by accident for 1 second, and that's when he gets his chance to grab the mask and get out of there. But I remember when I lifted up, James, and I, because he had to sort of jump with me, and I picked him up, and I think we went a little too high. And when he hit the ground, I heard his spine rearrange.
We recorded that sound.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I was
and
scared.
his entire spine cracked from top to bottom. And I swear to God, you can see, I don't know where that take exists, but you can see me get off of him because I thought I had paralyzed shape.
Yeah, I thought he was just going to recharge.
Scary.
I thought he was going to recharge and grab you by the neck, and then I was going to see what happened for real. We're going to take this thing to the next level.
Did you find what you're looking for?
I imagine you're going on a wonderful trip.
It's so interesting to have, like, you know, this movie is so difficult to make with so many logistics. I mean, if it's not makeup, it's special effects. You're trying to do this or that, or a vehicle that breaks down, or a moment of, like, it's just really, in a fun way, it's refreshing to have a scene with two people in a room talking, and you look at your day, you look at your call sheet, and you're just like, a sigh of relief of two people I love in a room, and we're just going to exercise what we're in this business to do in the first place, is tell a story, bring characters to life, fold a little laundry, and then get the fuck out of there. I mean, it was just so nice to be able to have something that isn't burdened with every aspect of logistics. It's literally just two wonderful characters and seeing where they take the scene.
You pretend like you moved on, but it's bullshit. You're actually
It was
just...
important to us to not do what, you know, we did in 2018, which was just kind of gaslight her and tell her that she's crazy and that she's wrong and all these things. It was really important to us to kind of find a different way into it. And kind of what you see and what we landed on is like, even if she does know that Laurie's right, she just doesn't give a fuck.
That's one of my favorite cuts.
You did such a beautiful job of this.
I love that. I love that cut. Thank you.
Just being able to put little psychological cuts in there rather than technically smooth cuts. She puts her hand to her forehead and then immediately she's in a different position. So it's kind of fun to be able to, again, credit Tim Alverson for finding some of these ways to tell the story in a different way, and sometimes a jarring cinema language is cool.
The cat that jumps up on the sofa was just a cat that lived at the junkyard. And I got so much love and companionship out of that cat on set.
Okay, relax. You had it from everybody.
It was
Like fucking Corey, fucking Lori, fucking Alan, fucking Michael, fucking the cat.
It's just all a big
fucking
Rowan love
Joan.
story, the whole movie.
Good Lord.
No, but it's true. It's true. When we would move on from some gruesome moment, we would leave Rowan and we'd move on and we'd be preoccupied. So in those quiet moments when we
Alone
weren't
with the
paying
cat.
attention to him, he had this cat. And
Zilla, you make it sound like I was falling to pieces if nobody was looking at me.
I mean, you went through a lot on this. Come on.
Grab that chain. Let's go.
Terry, there's somebody in the office.
Stop being a chicken shit. Run it through the wheel. All right? We're gonna tie it to the back of the car, and then we'll drag it until there's nothing left. Dusty ass bike.
Shit!
Let's go, Billy. Billy.
Come on, Terry, hurry up, man. Someone's here.
Billy. Come on, Billy. Let's get this punk. Let's go. Oh my God, Billy. Billy, what are you trying to do, man? Suck your own. Oh my God. What the fuck?
Terry? What's wrong?
Billy's dead.
What? What are you talking about? Oh, Stacy! Stacy!
So look at that. This was like 3 full overnights of sculpting together to get that sequence going.
Yeah, there's one of the few scenes that is really storyboarded, and I'm not a night person, but when we've got that limited time and we're trying to accomplish so much in terms of all these logistics coming together at once, yeah, it's pretty mapped out, and Attila and the AD team run a tight ship, and it's pulled off really nicely.
No, but everyone cross-departmentally. I mean, it looks so effortless, but just the simplest thing of when you're just lighting this scene, someone has to be in that mesh of the fence, and just the claustrophobic nature of what that is, just one tiny element is so difficult to endure. And yeah, I mean, this whole sequence has multiple things happening at the same time.
It's everything. It's stunts, special effects, stunt drivers, stunt performers, guns, weapon armor, and all at once.
I'm just trying to turn that character of Ronald into an action hero.
Because it was just an action movie.
Well, he was very happy when he saw this film. He said, I felt really well.
I got you. I got you.
Oh, this is lovely. There I am.
Boom.
Yeah.
What did I do until it? Did I just jump on the ground? Like, I feel like I just pancaked. I feel like I just laid on the ground.
You did. Yes, you did. You exactly pancake, because we did some trickery there. So all you had to do was, I think, pancake and then crawl back a bit or something.
I love the trickery when it's real practical in-camera disappearing acts. It's so much more fun.
I love that. And it was the same thing with the shot where I'm behind Lori when I show up at her house and I jump out. We just somehow, when match hide me.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to do that. I remember they were so worried about me doing this, putting a blowtorch in a dummy's mouth for my safety. And I remember looking at David and going, there's no way I don't blowtorch this dummy, David. I have to do this.
You know what we did? We added a dental drill to the sound effect of that. So it sounds so much more horrific.
Because all of us have PTSD with dental drills.
As a viewer, just when I think I'm desensitized.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think of another kill as recent in any of these movies when that blowtorch is gnarly.
You know, I have to credit the sound team on this. Rich and Paul and our sound design team is awesome at just having a good time and coming up with character. And sometimes they go to some pretty far out places to make some of these really effective.
David, you have
the blowtorch was what I read in the script where I was like, this is the thing I'm the most excited to see in this one.
Now we're gonna eat it. That looks good.
David, you have to tell the fun story of this reaction.
Of this reaction? Oh, so we aren't using the kill. The kill I think will be on a supplemental feature on the DVD, but we're not using the kill. Is that what you mean? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the song, man.
If getting her reaction in that moment was fun to just be able to. I don't know. You talk about it. You tell it.
Well, because you were shooting in slow motion, it becomes tricky trying to get like prolonged reactions because obviously it's slowed down, you see more, and some stuff is abstract and some stuff is more clear. So to get her to move her mouth in a fun way, you had her sing
Barbara Ann.
And so I'm upstairs shooting the scene where I'm transforming in the mirror, I'm washing my hands, and all I can hear from downstairs is Barbara Ann. And it went on for about 10 minutes and I couldn't figure out what was happening.
Can I help you?
Wait, but this was another one too, right? Didn't you have them dancing in the background they're
So
they were like, he's supposed to be murder?
Diana Prince, who I met. Diana Prince, I was on the Joe Bob Briggs show, The Last Drive-In, and I met Diana, who's the sidekick on that show, and we just ended up talking about Halloween 3 and our love for Season of the Witch, and then I asked her to come be in this movie, and then it was fun too. We had a really good time, but I wanted her murder to be a dance. And then this I never thought would actually be in the movie. When we were doing that, it was like, there's no way, there was no way we were gonna have something that.
This is so good.
But this was just happening. This was not planned, it was just happening. I don't even know where it goes. It's just in bad taste, and it's a different movie, but somehow we just kept it in, and when we would take it out, we would be sad, so we would put it back in.
There was a lot of shape work on that day where we had stunts doing shape stuff for me while I was on the roof doing a movie with Andy.
There's a lot going on that day.
Yeah, it's just part of that whole thing where, Blumhouse, they give us a certain amount of time, and but what happens is they give us the freedom to do it, but we have to achieve it all within the given time, and so it leads to a lot of multiple camera running around from set to set, and yeah.
I mean, it is a circus sometimes.
It's insane.
That's a perfect day of like, there's so much happening in one place.
There are 3 units
Well,
happening.
that's the open of the movie. You remember, David? I was shooting 3 different cameras, 3 different floors of the house.
Yeah,
and
we're just
3
running
different
up and
scenes.
downstairs, getting exercise, just trying to set one camera, leapfrogging here to there, and yeah, it's.
But that's when it was like the biggest gift I think you guys ever gave me to getting into this movie, because sometimes you show up on a set and it's all slow and this big like emotional entry into this thing, and you guys were like, all right,
Grabbed you from the car.
floors.
Yeah, grabbed you from the car. Oh, camera's already rolling. Threw you in. Somebody just last looked at you with like superficially, and then that was it. and then cut to the end of the day. You're like, we finish one scene downstairs. Then you go upstairs to another camera, and you're roaming around the attic, and that was pretty much how it went for the rest of the movie, I think.
And then I blinked, and it was 3 days later, and we had an open to a movie, and it was cool.
Yeah, it is strange to think how how successful these movies have been financially, but the model hasn't really changed. And I think if the model was to change, if you were to make a big budget version of these movies, I think it would lose some of the charm of the grittiness, the rawness that I think Carpenter and Deborah Hill and that 1978 crew kind of inspired our methodology. And it is the constraints that are probably equally as rewarding as.
Well, yeah, and they also result in creative ways to get out of things. Like we were talking about, how do you do that big fight with Corey and the Shape, seeing it through the tunnel. That was born from, okay, we have 3 hours to do this. What is that version? And it ends up being much more unique. There's a benefit to having those limitations. Otherwise, we get a bit carried away with ourselves, I think.
I remember this sequence when we were writing it. I remember I was on a conference call with Paul Logan and Chris Bernier, and this was a point that we were trying to figure it out, and we were literally 3 writers on this sequence trying to do choose your own adventure. Like, where do we go from here? And here we are, blah, blah, blah. And I remember I had an idea. I was at a water park with my kids, and then I had to step away from the water park and call them up. They both answered the phone. I was like, let's spitball this idea. And so I'm just pacing around, like watching, what are water slides and frolicking children everywhere. And then there's this idea of this fake suicide. And we just ended up talking through it. And then everybody went away that night and wrote their version of it. And so then we get back together the next day and we talk through what we all learned from those explorations. And it's really fun when you have collaborators and co-writers that have that sense of adventure. You're like, here's where we are. Here's the idea. Here's the seed. Now let's dance.
Up until, I feel like once Corey enters, there were so many different iterations of this ending. And we would get a different version of it like almost weekly up until shooting.
Yeah, it was on the front porch for a while. I had a little Night of the Hunter nod with her awaiting.
There was one with Allison coming in and being part of, Corey was still alive.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
There was a lot that was played with.
The shape of that room, and sometimes under certain lighting, I feel like Laurie Strode's office, it's like she lives in a little pumpkin.
It's like she lives in a pumpkin?
Like, it looks like a little pumpkin. Like,
it does kind of look like a little pumpkin.
Pumpkin-esque.
A lady who lived in a pumpkin.
It's kind of fun.
Did you really think I'd come?
This gets the biggest cheers in theaters. It makes me so happy.
There's your 4th fall, Hugo.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this is the last one.
This is, by the way, the source of my future balding right here.
She got a good grip.
Just,
oh.
So cool. She's so cool.
These are funny conversations when after you've made the movie, you've delivered it, and then you get into the marketing of movies and you start talking to the studio of like, what's going to go in the trailer? And it's such a education because it's outside of my expertise of how do you get people to see the movie, and then inevitably you think these moments, these trailer moments that are embedded in the film, and then what are you going to show the audience to anticipate the movie, or what are you going to show them that's going to spoil the movie, and how are you going to like reallocate some line or some moment that's elsewhere in the movie to tell a different story. So it's really fun. And I met the editor of the trailer at the premiere party the other night and talked to him. I really want to, I told him this. I said, before the next movie, I want to sit down and talk to you about what you're looking for. Because he watches everything we're filming, he watches all that footage. And it's so fascinating to think that there's this whole other department, this whole other art form that takes what we're doing here and the performance art of all this and then tries to do something to service a different aspect of the promotion of the movie.
A lot of what I think about when I watch this in theaters is how the on location when you're on the outside of the door is separate from the inside, which we stopped in the studio. And I just remember thinking, like, you did such a great job of carrying it over to the on location stuff that was shot on like a completely different day.
No, but more importantly, we shot it before as well. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
All the screams.
And then in one take, Jamie screamed back at me, and that's when you're reminded that I will forever be a scream princess, not a scream queen.
I love when when Allison comes home and then Laurie Strode has a knife and at her feet is a guy with the Michael Myers mask she just killed, and it's not what it looks like.
Yeah. No, I kept saying, I was like, it just needs to be out of frame. And you can pretend like Allison doesn't see it. But that whole sequence is really fun to watch from because I feel like Corey's death comes out of nowhere. People lose their minds when they see that. And then you can literally you can hear the audience piecing together what the hell is about to happen, because then Allison comes in, you see that they're starting to piece together. It looks like Laurie did it. And it's so much fun, that whole sequence, hearing the reaction of people.
And there's ideas. Do you see Allison come in? But Mike Simmons, who's our cinematographer on these movies, and he's more than just a guy that sets up a camera and tells lighting where to put the lights. He's a guy that's thinking about story. And so he comes to the editing room and gives us a cinematographer's storytelling of these sequences. And so it's really fun. Tim and I will sit there and hear his ideas and be inspired by his ideas of not actually seeing you come in, but see the look on Laurie's face of seeing you come in is more interesting. And so it's always, from the very first drafts of the script, we're getting Mike to read them out loud and hear his visualization of the storytelling, and then to follow that through the editing room is pretty exciting.
This is Jim taking revenge for that body slam you gave him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, ever since that body slam, anytime Jim had to put his hands on me, I was so nervous.
I have to say the funniest thing that ever happened on any of the three of these sets was this next shot of Jim when he's wearing the mask in this hallway right here. And then I'm looking at it through the monitor right as we're rolling, and then I noticed that he's chewing gum. It's like, is Shape chewing gum back there? And then he's like, sorry. And he just reaches up through his mouth and pulls out.
No, I think he just stuck it in the inside of the mask.
I hope so.
And Chris Nelson probably has to find all sorts of weird things in there. Oh, every time I see a bloody knife, I just think of our wonderful on-set props, Cindy Ma.
Okay, this part right here, for like any movie nerds like myself, this is probably what I would most freak out on. One day, Jeebert, I guess I overheard Jamie asking for a metronome, and so Jeebert pulled up a sound file and then to the Shape's footsteps, so that same metronome matches the Venetian, that chord.
Yeah.
Exactly, and narratively, it gets taken further, but I love how technically it was so mapped out and specific.
It's fun. And this whole sequence was Kevin Scott and Corey DeMeyers and Ashley and Aaron Armstrong putting together this awesome choreography for what this fight was going to be, and taking what's on the page and then really rehearsing it, playing with it, then bringing Jim and Jamie in and saying, how do we make this feel not just like a kitchen brawl, but it's like dramatic, almost intimate, kind of a passionate fight, and bring as much expression and emotion as there. That's Jamie's head taking a smash to the glass there, doing it for real. I was very reluctant to allow her to do that, but she was adamant, and she kicked a lot of ass in this sequence.
Yeah, because she was really adamant about making it, the choreography and the design of it really suit her and not be, a stunt-centric battle. And so she was very involved with the creation of this choreography. I spent a lot of time with Jim Courtney right before a take, just to review what we're about to do. But I say to him sometimes, like, why are you doing this? Why are you killing people? What's the matter with you? And he says, till when the shape kills, it's his way of making love.
Sounds like a Jim G. Courtney line.
He says, yeah, I'm just making love to them, and the only way I know.
So like Corey, he starts off as a normal person, but the Shape, he was always the Shape. So when I watch Shape kill, morally I don't have a problem because he's not human. There's that disavow, that separation. And in this end, I kind of feel sorry. I don't want the Shape to die.
Hugo, what are you doing on a day when we're all jammed in a kitchen like this? Where are you? What's your job on a day like this?
On this set, I'm on the back porch of Laurie's house the whole time. That was my area. That's where I locked up. And so I'd always try to pop in to do stuff real quick and go back out. But the cast was back there, and I would help Tess out. Everybody would chill out and hang out that back porch.
Where was I this day? Was there another unit going on?
Yes. Well, it depends which part. No, like we attacked this scene with two different units over the space of 2 weeks. So there were times that we were together with you while they were doing pickups of this.
Yeah, they'd do insert shots, and we'd leave those with second unit.
It would be funny. Like we're on a set doing one screen we're focused on the love story that we're shooting. And then on the other screen, we're seeing what they're doing on the other side.
We're seeing a skillet hammer a knife into a... yeah.
That was, I think we were doing the rooftop scene, and I was looking at the monitor in between takes, and it was like a guy getting his tongue cut out, and then on the other screen was like these two like canoodling on the roof. I was like, what the fuck are we doing?
But then I also say for both of you guys, there's not many days where you wouldn't come visit set even if your characters weren't involved in that scene.
Oh, I was on set, I think, every day.
I just love that kind of camaraderie that happens on these movies, and I hope that carries forward in all the movies is casts that are not just invested in each other, but they enjoy each other, and they're curious about what's going on when there's certainly an empty hotel room and tranquility on one side of the town, but we could go in and yeah, we could squirt more ketchup and roll up our sleeves and play in the blood and guts on the other side of town.
I like going to location scouts.
You should come. We're gonna do some more.
Oh yeah, I forgot when y'all say catch up, it reminds me of the Godard quote. It's like, there's no blood in movies, there's just red.
Nice.
Wow. I like that.
Well, Hugo, so you think he's not human? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that because when he was born, Shape is a predator who kills, and he's like pure id. He never developed other aspects of an identity, and he's like an animal, obviously, and through the franchise, there's been instances of depicting those aspects of his character.
Maybe because since we wrapped this film until now, we've just been so much in the Exorcist world, I can't help but just get into the possession aspect of it. Maybe it's blurring, like, especially how it's passed to Corey, and I just see it as a possession more than a supernatural being.
It's just amazing.
I mean, they're all animals. We're all animals. But I love hearing theories like that, and these movies are just a way that people can take something that they're passionate about and have discussions about it.
Oh. Chris Nelson, another shout out to you, man. You're an artist, and he really just enriches all of these things, these aspects of it.
Like with Shape, I like that I'm not ever going to look for a clear definition, but it's like just the little things that we do here and we do know. And like Hawkins says, the Shape doesn't use guns. Like we know that about him, and other things about he follows Laurie Strode. In the 2018 Halloween, we see he won't kill a baby, So he's an animal, but it's kind of like he has his own reasoning for killing, and he has boundaries, but we don't have to ever know what they are. It's more mysterious. It works better that way.
Speaking of showing up on days you're not supposed to be there, I showed up for Will Patton on location to lay on the ground for him because I'm so in love with Will Patton.
Yeah, we didn't
He's like my favorite.
we didn't see you, but you were, at least people felt you and stepped on you.
Yeah.
But I thought he told you to get out of there.
He did. Well, no, he
There's a
told us.
great-
I think he told.
There's a great. I was trying to not tell that story from my own,
self-preservation.
So there's a great behind-the-scenes video, which I hope makes it to the DVD release, where Andrew Epstein, our behind-the-scenes orchestrator, what would you
producer? Yeah.
Genius. He comes up to me and I'm laying on the ground. It's my day off, and he goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm a massive fan of Will Patton. I just want to do a scene with him. That's all I want more than anything." And we do 3 takes where Will runs in, he sees my body and reacts and runs past. And then I forget who it was. One of the ADs or PAs came up and said, "Hey, Will's just asking if you could leave." He was highlight. And then Epstein comes over. I'm sat in the corner of the room looking all sad, long-faced. And he goes, "What happened?" I said, "Well, Will asked me to leave the scene."
Yeah, he's asked me to leave the scene a few days. It's fun. Will is also my neighbor.
David was like, "Why aren't you laying there?" And I was like, "Dude, you gotta. I'm not gonna repeat myself, right? I was asked to leave."
Oh, you know what? He didn't want to step on you. He was being a gentleman. He's sweet.
So this sequence, there's Omar. Omar, so like we spent like 5 months working on this film, and blood, sweat, and tears. Omar comes for 24 hours and gets all the big laughs and the big cheers.
Oh, you know what? So the woman outside of the grocery store, in our original script, the woman outside the grocery store was the wife of Sheriff Barker.
Mm-hmm.
And then Omar was in production on something. There was some sort of COVID outbreak, and he couldn't make it away to come because he was going to be the one in the wheelchair. And he was the one that was going to be like traumatized after the events of 2018. And then he couldn't show up. So we had to scramble and come up with, that's when we met our new friend and brought Diva back from the dead, or so we thought, after her fluorescent light bulb extravaganza in Halloween Kills.
Shooting this was incredibly surreal.
I'm Gen X, and so during the 90s, during grunge, I go to a lot of shows and crowd surfing. So does anyone know when you're there how to start it, how to initiate crowd surfing?
How do you initiate crowd surfing?
So it's loud, so you can't hear it. So you go up to a stranger, whoever's next to you, and you lock your fingers together, and you present your palms to them, which is a stirrup. And you kind of do a little nudge, nudge. Can you accommodate this? And then they do that, and you use their palms as a stirrup, and you launch yourself. And
so you did this.
Yeah.
What bands would you crowd surf?
I mean, they're all obscure, because I was into punk rock way before I ever saw big stuff. But
like who?
I love Voodoo Glow Skulls, like Riverside, California, like Mexican ska core, like really fast punk. That was my first show I went to in stage dive and crowd surfed.
Nice.
I got a little more pretentious when I moved to Portland and got into like the post grunge, like Sleater Kinney and Quasi.
Oh, David, do you remember we had one chance at this?
One
and
shot.
We all got together. I sat on your lap and we all held hands.
I have a great photo.
Yeah, it's a family photo. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a great photo of you two and Rowan being David's emotional support.
Yeah, I was very nervous
Creature.
because we didn't know what that grinder was going to do, and we had one dummy built, and it was very expensive, and what are you going to do? And magically at 4 a.m, it works.
I love that the head just explodes like a watermelon.
It was the last shot up. The last shot of the whole thing, I think. Wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But I wonder if the DVD is going to show like the alternate ideas that you had for that, because that wasn't the original concept of how Michael Myers passes.
It's just kind of reordering. I mean, we filmed like with the crematorium ending. We tried to experiment with some things.
This scene was also entirely different when we shot it.
Yeah, this scene was, when we were filming it, was very inspired by the very ending scene in The Last Picture Show. Evolved, and we moved it earlier.
Such a great movie.
Yeah, we reorganized this. I'd say the last 4 minutes of this movie quite a bit, just trying to figure out what the right tone and order, the right amount of like optimism versus melancholy, and where we want to leave Laurie in her own mindset. So this was one that I intuitively felt correct after exploration and test screenings and playing with it and scratching our heads on it. The final version of this movie we never screened. We just kind of looked at each other. Did the same thing on Kills, just to the point where all of us, our collaborators, just look at each other and think, feels right, right? And we nod and smile, and then that's the movie.
So, David, can you talk about the vegetables improv with Will Patton?
Oh yeah, Sugar Snaps. That was an Eastbound and Down reference that he didn't get and didn't care for.
I don't think he's ever gotten any of your references in the last
But
three
that's what
films.
was so funny about him asking me to leave that scene is he just seems so like I don't know, like he never, you know, like he gets the joke, but he's like, I'm here to work. you
Yeah,
know?
but top 10 most playful actors I've ever worked with.
He's amazing.
I love it.
This is such a tender moment that didn't exist in
love
the
this
original
scene.
script, I don't think.
Yeah.
Also, how romantic to deliver vegetables to somebody. You know, I mean, that's
They're trying to think of something that's not sentimental. You know, you're trying to think of something, but then she did throw him a can of beans earlier and say, stop eating them croquettes. Yeah,
Croquettes.
Stop mixing them.
Croquettes.
And then this is, of course, an homage and tableaus to the ending of the original '78 film, but where there was once breathing and continuation, now there's silence, but with a curious mask and a familiar song.
And
Great
to me,
song.
it recalls the same song, Muzak version, when Hawkins and Laurie are in the grocery store, right?
Yeah, that's where because this is a song that everyone that is born on Earth knows. If you're 2 days old, you're hearing, you know Blue Oyster Cult. But it's a song that plays in the original film, and I was trying to think of something that wasn't just, because if you cut to iconic, thematic Halloween music, it takes you somewhere else in your head of like trying to end a movie. And I was trying to come up with music that suggested an ending of the movie, and then going through the history of the Halloween movies, that one was just one that's, it's a perfect road trip song. It's a perfect ending of a thoughtful day or beginning of a new day, and that's what I wanted it to ask as we're trying to wind down the tone of this movie. And then this other song is an original song by Boy Harsher, which is just a musical entity that I really love, and reached out to them. This is an expanded version of the song that they wrote for the motorcycle scene that leads to the top of the radio tower, and we echo her beautiful voice in Burn It Down. And they wrote the song not even knowing that we were going to burn down the radio
really?
tower thematically, which is just one of those things when you connect with artists and you're just on this wavelength. And yeah, I didn't even know that. I was talking to them the other night, and that's really cool that they were able to cook it up and find that theme.
When you sent us this song, it was so surreal. It felt like the first, it was like a big moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm in a major motion picture where other artists that have such a voice are really collaborating on across all platforms, not just film.
And then, of course, we wanted to, after this track rocks out a little bit, we go back to the land of tried and true and the magic and brilliance of John Carpenter as we say our goodbyes. And yeah, maybe we say our goodbyes here. Attila and Hugo and Andy and Rowan and the hundreds of people that have helped us out over the 3 films, and the legacy of which we are now a part of and proud to be a part of. It's pretty exciting and bittersweet conclusion, and that's all I have to say. Any final words from anybody?
Thank you for your ears. Thank you for your company. And ciao for now.
Yeah, and thank you to the fans that have been there. And yeah, it's just nice to have those conversations and those inspirations from everyone. And love or hate it, it's people that connect with this mythology, and God bless them.
That was beautiful.
Love you guys.
I love you.
The end.